are still a significant number of kids in the UK who don't have access to digital learning facilities.
Crazy, isn't it?
Libraries close at 5 o'clock. Schools close at 5, maybe 6 o'clock if they run after school clubs. We're not yet at a point, certainly in the UK, of recognizing that perhaps something like internet access should be as prevalent as access to electricity and clean water.
Well, our lovely friends at the EU have determined it's a human right, isn't it? The access to high-speed internet.
I guess so, but I don't know how.
The practicality of making that happen is.
I mean, it's possible to make it happen. There are ways of doing it. It is something that's approachable. But yeah, we'll just redefine it in the UK. We'll just have something that says kind of
high speed includes 56K dial-up modems. Oh, you appear to be on fire, Daniel.
Oh,
that's the first fire we've ever had. Is it your log fire in the background?
It's just the TV.
TV?
Yeah.
Crikey. Oh, the TV in the background. Right.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But it's pretty immersive.
Definitely one for the audio listeners need to kind of quickly have a look on the video. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured it might have been some visual hijinks for you there. I suspect this might be a very fun episode this evening.
I like them. The two eyes behind you.
Yeah,
they're like dragon eyes.
These are old lamps, and I just connected them. What's better than googly eyes? Everything needs googly eyes.
So. I was going to say, when did Rasmus pass through?
Did Rasmus happen?
Never. Not yet.
That's the better way. That's the way of putting it. Yeah, not yet.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Rasmus is inevitable. It's only a matter of delaying the time.
Yeah, so given the tales he was telling of the craft fair on the 2/3 Focused episode that came out this morning, I think he'll be popping down to Austria to warm up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's getting warmer. So we had some heavy snow, but we are in the positive digits. It's kind of
nice.
We went double digits. We went double digits today.
Positive or negative?
Positive double digits. Yeah, I think 10 or 11 degrees.
Asking the right questions.
Yeah,
well,
that's
we were -4 on Wednesday morning, I think it was. When I defrosted my wife's car at 7:15 in the morning. So yeah, a 14-15 degree swing in three days.
Yeah, that's the climate change thingy. What happened to the good old global warming back in the day when they...
Back when we didn't know what it meant and we just said warming instead of climate change.
Yeah. And then I guess climate change is an Austrian invention because we have the saying in Austria that we always find a solution where no one is really happy.
I like it. I was aiming for having this all complete before we started.
For the audio listeners, Jamie has been assembling a 3D printed mouse.
Yeah.
You've lost the screws, haven't you?
No. I've got 2 screws left on the bottom to put in, and I've got 3 screws in front of me. So I'm going back through the video instructions to see if it's me cock up or whether I've got an extra screw. Like any good maker.
you kind of, yeah. I mean,
Will it hold together with 2 screws? I would put in the 2 screws and test it, and when it works, you're fine. You have 1 extra.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for.
yeah. Well,
Because I think
put
that
them in,
makes
give it a
most sense.
shake. If something rattles around inside, you're probably missing one.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to
Throw
be
it on the
comments
floor,
surely
and
about
when
it
it
being loose.
explodes,
It's
Come on.
so what you're basically saying, Jamie, is that you didn't know all the parts at the start when it was kind of like, yeah, you should have 3M3.
No. Oh yeah, no, I've got all the
No,
parts, but I kind of whistled through the guide because there's only so much you need for just putting stuff on things. There's a slight spring rattle.
Jamie is, well, hopefully there's a spring on the wheel. The
click it.
switches.
Yeah,
How's the
that's
clicking sound?
clicking sound
Yeah,
for
it's
the
not
audio
picking up.
listeners. Yeah, it's a mouse.
Yeah.
So for the audio listeners there, Jamie was shaking his mouse around and
Yeah,
pressing his mouse's buttons.
and it hasn't fallen apart in my hand. I'm taking that as a good sign.
This is good. The
So
question
it's
you now got to connect it
irrelevant.
to you can now going to connect it to the computer. So if the show goes down, we know there's kind of some sort of alignment issue, calibration issue.
Don't worry, he forgot to put in the cable.
No, I did. I definitely put the cable in. Oh, we have that's flashing lights in.
Ooh, flashing light. Okay.
Right. If I keep talking and then see if we disappear. So, oh, I heard a bing of the thing.
The plug and play. So Jamie's attention grabber, obviously later, is going to be 3D printing a mouse. Because that's grabbing his attention right now. But I'm sure he's going to tell us more about how and why he's 3D printing a mouse.
Yeah,
and not just
the mouse
because
is
I
moving.
can. Okay, is the pointer moving on the screen?
It is.
I'm
calling that a win.
Do the movements match?
Mostly.
Left and right buttons match.
Yeah, the left and right buttons do left and right buttons.
So a little bit of applause for Jamie.
I assembled a kit.
I think Neil's just come up with an interesting point. It says you're connected and you're now transmitting all your data to someone overseas, maybe.
In China, probably.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough of my life that goes overseas anyway in various forms, so I'm not too worried about a mouse as well.
We have a question from we have a question from Duncan from the Little Hobby Shop. He wants some top tips from Daniel on camera and scene setup for a video call. You have very, very clean video there. Really good lighting. I'm guessing you're not on. I'm guessing you're not on a 20 quid webcam or a
no. I'm
built-in
on
webcam.
I'm on a DSLR, Canon DSLR, and connected with what is it called? They have like this
video capture.
No, it's some app that lets you use almost every Canon camera as a webcam.
Ah, nice.
I've heard about that. Unfortunately, I was a Nikon. I'm thinking of getting rid of them, so they're actually in a box ready to get going. But yeah, Nikon didn't have the that facility on all bar a few of the sort of more recent models. Unfortunately,
I guess Canon released the thing right in the beginning of the pandemic. So
yeah,
clever.
Yeah, I think Nikon wanted you to pay for an extra little gizmo.
No, that's for free. So if you have any Canon camera,
the Canon one was free. The Canon one was free.
Canon was free.
Nikon wanted to charge.
Nikon,
yeah.
That's how you close off your user groups.
Yeah. Yeah, and lighting wise, the more light, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean your videos are.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's a rubbish tip.
Put some baking paper in front of it to diffuse it a bit.
Bit of a diffusion. Yeah,
I like that idea. I never thought about using that.
We did that back in the time back in the day when we hadn't proper video lights. We just used a construction light, the one with we call them.
Oh, the cob type LED.
No LED. The ones with the
halogen floodlight.
The halogen, type. Yeah.
Long bulb.
The long bulbs getting super hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Halogen ones, yeah.
Put a coat hanger on in front of it and hang a baking paper over the coat hanger to diffuse it.
That's a genius idea.
It's a softbox, isn't it? I mean, you could probably use
more or less, yeah,
a variety of things. You could have a duvet cover,
and as long as you aren't mixing too many different lights in terms of light temperature, or know which to use where.
Yeah, and then filter them.
It works.
Yeah,
it's tricky. It can be tricky lighting. I think it's one of those sort of things. Once you've got it kind of sort of dialed in, it can make a huge amount of difference.
Yeah.
But if you're working on, particularly if you're working on a budget, and don't have much space, then it can be a little bit sort of on the trickier side. I mean, I'm using I think it's a 5,000 Kelvin bulb there, but then I've got a compact fluorescent lamp up there because just need general room. And
I mean, mine's screens and a terrible ring light to try and.
I think mostly screens.
Often a good idea is to not use the light directly, but bounce it on a wall and use the reflection.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense, that, because I suppose it gets rid of that kind of ring light in the glasses and things as well, doesn't it?
That's getting rid of the reflections on the glasses is one of the hardest. So that's because I can't put the light in front of me, because
no, you'll get it straight back to the camera, isn't it? Yeah, it's thinking about the angles.
No, this would still work, but the eyes are pretty dark this way, but then there's no reflection in the glasses.
Yeah, that was because I've got the filters on mine for filtering out the blue light. So all my wedding photos, I look like I've been punched in the face because it's all
a green and blue.
I've got like a purple.
It's
filter.
The same with these. It's like they reflect the lights in green and purple, and
it's like a puff. You get the full ghost story there, Andy.
Can do, but it's hard to reach the lamp to turn it off. The other one, yeah. Yeah, I bought one of these little. I was just wanting to play around with it. It was like 15 quid.
These tiny lights are super awesome because you can stick them somewhere and like.
I had mine about an hour ago.
Nice effect.
Give yourself a halo. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I like about this one is it's got the ability to
change the color temperature,
and the brightness of it. So you can really rack up the brightness and rack up the sort of color temperature. Depending on what you want to try and match them.
I guess the best tiny portable lights are these aperture lights. They have all kinds of effects built in. You can switch them to, hold on.
Yeah, they're controllable by an app as well, aren't they?
Yeah, you can color match them by just picking a color from a photo. You have
What?
stuff like paparazzi or fireworks. Does it work? It changes colors.
Nice.
And you can stick them somewhere behind whatever, faulty bulb, TV, lightning.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
They are super work lamps when you have to work in whatever computer under under the desk. Stick them on the case because they have tiny magnets on there.
I can say the magnetic. That one
Yeah.
of mine is the same. It's got like every different possible way of attaching it to things.
Yeah, mine's got some cold shoe attachments. It's got several on there. There's one on each side. Cold shoe socket on each side, and then a
these
cold
have
shoe plug on the bottom. You can stack them.
They have a thread in there where you can put in all the different connectors.
Yeah, I got a similar 2,500 to 6,500 Kelvin adjustable lamp thing that's got the cold shoe and the thing. But I did a 3D printed. It's got the
With
magnets
magnets.
in, and then just and a pass through with a bolt for the screw as well. So it'll take a cold shoe,
Slide it in.
20, and it'll take the cold shoe as well, and then you can just hang it off things as well. It's my kind of plan for it. Quite useful.
That is good.
And the magnets are to put them on some magnetic.
Yeah, so you can just stick it to something and position it as a work light, or hang it on something or whatever. I keep meaning to reprint it out to TPU, but it's in clear PLA. There's a slight error in it in that I'd filleted all the corners apart from that one.
That makes it special.
Yeah, it's the only version that is like that because everything else has been fixed. Yeah.
So you can grab it in any of the holes except for this one without slicing your fingers open.
Yeah, exactly.
I just find it amazing how kind of the lighting technology has changed. I mean, the whole you've got a whole sort of science now called photonics, just kind of looking at that sort of emission of light from radiant source. Because I took up caving in the late 1980s. I did a little bit in the mid 1980s, but in the late 1980s I took up caving, and back then, pretty much in the UK, most cavers were using either the Petzl Zoom head torch, which is kind of the first head torch that Petzl produced. Or at that point, I think it was like version 3 by the time.
Was it LED back then?
No, halogen. It wasn't even halogen. It came standard with just an ordinary filament lamp.
Okay.
But I, like many others who are kind of into backpacking, would put a halogen bulb into it, which gave a much better beam. Gave a beam probably about 100 meters, but obviously at a cost of battery life.
Yeah.
But a lot of cavers, because you didn't get much battery life out of that, so a lot of cavers were using mining battery packs. So the NCB, the National Coal Board, which was the kind of the at the time when we had a national mining corporation, they had big lead acid battery packs. So you had a battery pack that was kind of sort of probably about 5 kilos. No, probably slightly less than 5 kilos. Maybe about 2.5, 3 kilos of battery would be on your belt, and then there'd be a lead coming up your back, around your helmet, and a unit that slipped onto the front. And a lot of people would kind of match. It's interesting, kind of how actually matching. You try different bulbs. So you got one that worked really well with reflector, because this is the days where they weren't computer designed in those days. They were pressed out. So try half a dozen different bulbs, you get half a dozen different patterns of light. And so with one of those, depending on the bulb choice, and they had 2 bulbs in anyway. So you had a main bulb, which is on the main reflector, and there was a little sub bulb for kind of lower rated, so give you extra, lasts longer. So I think my battery pack would give 16 hours.
Was it switchable between the two bulbs?
Yeah, it was a little dial. They were waterproof, so you had this little dial. Sort of just turned around, and it was a really simple just mechanism inside. Just a little simple rotary switch, just to move the connectors from one bulb to the other. And they were great. They were cheap. I think early 90s I bought my first sort of non-mining one, and it was a nickel cadmium pack, rubber coated, which was a lot smaller. It was only about 1.5 kilos. Still gave about 12, 14 hours of battery life. But again, you're still stuck with a lead. So you sometimes you kind of squeeze into a gap, your lead would get caught on.
And you can change batteries that quickly.
No, and you couldn't. I mean, some guys doing really deep stuff would go down with like 2 of the big batteries on, and would swap over. And you could, you'd have a spare. Most people carried a little pen torch or something in a waterproof bag, or so you always had a third light, or a light stick, chemical light stick,
magnesium.
But I can remember in the early, I mean, you got people used to use carbide lamps. Carbide essentially is it's calcium carbide, which is this amazing rock. It's quite a lightweight rock. Doesn't really look like much. It's quite soft to the hands. Just looks just like this sort of slightly light grey, quite soft rock. If you drop water onto it, or if you drop it into water, it dissolves, chemical reaction, and it releases acetylene. So there was this whole kind of quite an old sort of style of lamp where they had a little. You'd have this lamp on. You could have it as a belt-mounted thing as well with a tube. So you had this little vessel inside of which you'd put some rocks, and you'd carry spare rocks with you. And there would be then a vessel above that which had water in it, and there was a little dropper, and you controlled the drop rate, and that would control how much acetylene was produced. And then you'd have a little piezo lighter, or just an ordinary lighter. So you'd have basically a flame in front of this sort of quite big, typically polished brass reflector. Obviously not waterproof, but could last for many, many more hours. Gave it quite a nice warm light.
I just love this progression back through his, from like now where you've just got the little cob strip that's stuck to your head that gives you like 4 years of battery.
There were guys that were messing around with early LEDs. I mean, at that point, there weren't really any proper white LEDs as we have now. The technology hadn't been developed. Red LEDs, not a problem. Green LEDs, not a problem. I don't think you could get blue LEDs.
No, blues wouldn't have been around then. No,
blue came later, and it was in fact the development of if I remember rightly, and I might not be right on this, it was the development of the blue that led through to the development of proper white LEDs.
Yeah,
and so you had these guys who were playing around with LEDs and battery technologies, and basically trying to do their best with kind of available technology. Sometimes, I mean, one interesting thing about cavers, it's a really stupid sport in some respects. It's quite dangerous. A lot of people involved in caving are often actually quite intelligent. It's that element of exploration. And I used to know lots of guys. They were like teachers and engineers and people who were really kind of were doing some quite fascinating work. And there were guys who were putting their technological skills into designing new bits of kit, new bits of hardware for climbing and stuff, and the lighting technology, particularly in battery technology, and playing around with kind of LEDs long before some of the manufacturers kind of picked up on it. And yeah, there's some interesting designs being picked up. I mean, just slightly off lighting. There was a guy back, I think it was in the 80s, developed a radio system that allowed you to communicate underground, which only required a single cable going into the underground. So you didn't need a battery system, but it required
just like long wave kind of.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact technology, but eventually it worked on a system. You had a receiver on the surface,
cord and two
one cord going in,
but then a cup at one end and a cup at the other end.
Almost, but you could communicate through. There was something called a mole phone, and eventually this worked really quite well. If your navigation was up to it, you had to navigate. You had to get the receiver directly above the transmitter.
How did it work?
And so there was a couple of different technologies. So you had the one with a single cable, which essentially was, I think, on an Earth return.
Okay.
And you had this mobile phone, which
it wasn't just like a really long drill bit, was it? It just drilled straight down and then just shout.
Cave rescue team I was in, there were some interesting plans for some of the caves. It's like, if anyone gets hurt in this cave and it's beyond, we can't rescue them, we'll just blow the top of the mountain off. There were plans that were basically like that for certain kind of situations. You basically put in place because it was like, we can't rescue someone from there. And there was another couple where it's like, we can't get people, if there's somebody injured beyond this part of this cave, it will be easier to take basically a hospital to them. It would be easier just to kind of, we will take kit. We can't, it's too hard to get the patient out. We'll just take all the kit that might be needed for multiple weeks underground. Yeah, it just, I mean, they're nutters, basically.
Mining is a whole nother thing.
Yeah. But it was really interesting seeing how, because again, being kind of interested in sort of caving and stuff like that, the progression since kind of, the 1990s, early 1990s, late 1980s, in kind of, pretty much everything up to about sort of the start of the 90s was based on filaments. Whether that's a filament in kind of, just a gas like argon, or whether it's in one of the halogens. And then you started getting the LED technology coming in, and if you compare kind of LEDs from the early 90s to some of the cob technologies, and the duration of things now, and the power that's available.
Oh yeah,
you see some of these
instant daylight from a little tiny 10-pound head torch, isn't it now?
Yeah.
The guys I really feel sorry for are the guys earlier from that have got like the full cart with Baghdad batteries in it, and then just the inanimate carbon rod to try and
arc lamps. Arc lamps are fun. Yeah.
Or even way farther back, the guys with just the wood torches. Where I'm living, there's a big salt mine. So in this mine, I guess it was the Celts is the Celtic mine. So
okay, I mean Salzburg, salt making.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that.
But there is no salt in Salzburg, because the salt from Salzburg is actually from Hallein. That's where I am. And Hallein stands for salt, and the ending line is like tiny, so it's tiny salt.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's parts of near where I grew up that were it's all salt mines as well, and that's all just flushed out. But of course, it's just there's big cavernous areas of like the town that they might have to evacuate at a moment's notice kind of thing.
Okay, because
yeah,
kind of
it's so much underneath it just might give way at any kind of point.
the dwarves
Yeah,
mind too deep.
pretty much. Like if anyone notices any large cracks in their house very, very quickly appearing, run.
No joke, we had something like that, not here, but in Styria, where they had, I guess it was some kind of coal mine, where they started to mine without a plan. And they mined under houses, and one day a huge hole in the ground formed, and a lot of houses just fell in there.
Sinkhole, yeah.
And there was one guy, 10 days locked in there and survived, or even long. I don't know the exact time he was in there.
Some of that scares me. I mean, I grew up in South Wales, which has a huge mining. I mean, I grew up in a mining village. You know, that most of the industry of the valleys was around the mines or the steelworks. So it's also an area. This is where I've started caving. It's an area with huge amounts of karst, limestone, and huge amount of caves. Of course, all in different bands, of course. So your coal line is different from your limestone. But there literally were. You walk into school and a mile underneath you, there's guys digging out coal by hand, and the thing that probably scares me more than actually the thought of kind of collapsing into those and shake holes. I mean, the moorland to the north of the town I grew up in has the highest density of natural shake holes in the world. And it makes really good navigation training if you're kind of into hill walking, because you can look across this moorland and it's flat, but it's scattered with caves, entrances, and shake holes. And some of these sinkholes, they're 5 meters across. Some of them are 50 meters across and 30 meters deep. And 20 meters deep and 10 meters deep. There's different shapes still, depending on what's underground. I mean, there's hundreds of kilometers of cave passage in the area. The thing that really scares me is the kind of the stuff that was taken out, the spoil that was left over. Once you've taken your useful coal away, well, what happens to the spoil? It just gets piled up. And I know of places kind of in the valley that I grew up in where there are now houses that have been built on spoil heaps. They weren't there when I was a small child. Those houses couldn't exist in that portion of space where they are now because there would have been nothing underneath them. And they're built on just compacted spoil heaps. And that scares me. And when you look then, actually, there's been cases of, the classic example, which you might not have heard of, Daniel, but I'm sure Jamie's heard of, was the Aberfan disaster in the late 1960s. You might have heard of it. It's famous. It was on The Crown, if you watched it.
Yeah, of course I do.
And it
was the hillside.
Took out the school, the village primary school. Hundreds of kids wiped out in seconds. And things like that. That was like, it's scary. It's downright scary, and there's still the potential for some of those things. I mean, obviously, that was quite a wake-up call for the mining industry, and so they had to put in a lot of changes. But it's still, you still walk around. If you walk around the valleys, you know when you're walking on those sort of places. And nowadays, you're not likely to be kind of walking across a spoil heap and thinking, "Oh, I can see a village school down there." But it's worrying some. If you live in one of those sort of places, I think
that's always going to be the kind of thing, though, isn't it? Over a long time, there's always those kind of geological changes under us. Obviously, as things shift and stuff like that, there's areas of residential areas that are built upon things like landfill sites, or I mean the old American trope of building houses on Indian burial grounds, or that's the Scooby-Doo scenario, and all that kind of thing. People have built houses in very silly places, whether they get washed away or fall through something, or
it's built by a house
human
on the East
nature, isn't
Anglian
it?
coast.
Yeah, or the ones that are built on cliff edges and things like that. Erosion happens, and
10 meters a year. Yeah, it's something to think about. I mean, there's some great things coming out of it as well. I mean, some of the salt mines up in the northeast. They're so much deeper, and they go out under the North Sea. Geologically, very, very stable. They've been well designed in terms of, let's not just rip out everything. Let's leave in sufficient support. Let's not scrape every last bit out, so we've got some structure. So now there's facility to be able to archive things in a geologically safe and very secure area. But then you've also, there's one of the mines up that way is now a basically giant physics experiment where they've got a huge tank of very pure water.
So the neutrinos one?
Yeah. So there's a few around the world and at different sizes. So basically you have a huge tank of very, 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 very pure water. You surround it with photomultipliers, and you wait for the neutrinos to kind of interact with the water and produce a tiny little spark of light, which they occasionally do. But neutrinos don't do. Yeah, you expect billions to pass through something with nothing happening, and occasionally you'll get one little tiny flash of light. Because neutrinos
is big. It's very big.
Well, space is big, and neutrinos are sneaky little gits. Because I mean, there's millions passing through each of us right now, not doing anything, just passing through us. As we sit here, as every single person listening to this, watching this, they've got millions of neutrinos just passing through them, and it's like, I mean,
and hilariously, any Stargate SG-1 fans will be chuckling to themselves because Colonel O'Neill was listening to a very, very, very similar bit of science lesson, and he kept calling them Nintendos. Haven't we got millions of these Nintendos passing through us right now?
I was a bigger fan of him when he still was MacGyver.
I started about 10 years ago. Somebody lent me the MacGyver series on DVD.
Yeah,
I started watching it, and I was just like, "This is not as good as I remember." It had not aged as well in my head as I thought it should have been.
Did you start in on the first season?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you have to sit through the first and second season. And
I should
really,
have done, but I couldn't. I ended up a couple of months later just giving it back.
I'm currently watching the whole collection for the second time, together with my daughter.
Nice.
And this TV series they were ahead of their time in so many things. The way the way MacGyver talks to kids and kind of takes them for serious and not act like they are kids.
Treats them like real human beings.
Yeah, and there are so many. I guess you could call him woke for
Let's say treating people with respect.
With respect, and he was a real gun hater. And a reason they moved to the first two seasons were produced in LA, I guess, and then they went to Canada. was also because they were kind of on a little war against the NRA. I don't know. I guess it was in the second season where they had an episode where they destroyed a lot of guns from gun collectors.
Nice.
That'll definitely get the NRA riled up.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to try again. I'm sure they're available online somewhere. Oh, there's a new. I saw a advert or trailer rather a couple of days ago. I think it was something. I think it's like kind of Facebook Reel for a new series or new film.
MacGyver?
Yeah.
Forget it. The remake is crap.
It didn't look good.
It's way too much shooting. It's way too much boom bang.
Well, this one had like it was a scene of a jailbreak. So he used some salty food to generate a pile of hydrogen using a cell phone battery in his toilet, then blew it up to blow off the door of the jail. And it's just
sounds way too over the top.
The amount of hydrogen you'd need to do that, even if you've got it stoichiometric with the oxygen. Yeah.
The thing with the original series is they had some guy that kind of developed all the MacGyverisms, and when he's building a bomb or something, almost every component in there is right. They leave out stuff or swap one thing for another, so it's not.
So
tutorial
14-year-old kids would kind of go, oh, I can make that.
I think the Mythbusters covered something similar with that, because they've done a few MacGyver episodes and things, and generally that was the consensus that they came to as well, is that it was generally plausible-ish, but they were deliberately not giving you everything.
Yeah,
there's a very similar show with called Scorpion.
Yeah,
2015 or something.
It's Team MacGyver.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of. It's very much aiming to be a modern MacGyver.
Yeah.
The amount of times that they have like technological solutions, and it completely, broke the suspension of disbelief for me. Like, there's a point of like pulling the back off a tablet, taking the camera out, and jabbing something else in, and then having like X-ray vision and stuff. It's just like when you know too much about something, and then it's like, no, it's aimed at me, but it's not meant for me.
Yeah. It's like it's getting too much CSI.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like the James Bond, some of the James Bond gadgets. Yeah, I think you mentioned X-rays there, Jimmy. I'm thinking of, I can't remember which film it is, but there's one of the Pierce Brosnan films where he puts on a pair of glasses, and as he's looking around the casino, he can see kind of the guys who've got kind of holsters, with weapons underneath, and he can see through the dresses of kind of all the pretty ladies.
On Facebook,
probably, yeah.
And
you can see the underwear of all the pretty ladies and see which of those are kind of got little pistols stuffed into garters and the like, and it's like X-rays don't work like that.
But these were plot devices made from unobtainium.
Well, I did wonder kind of with that, whether it was just like the car outside was when you put the glasses on, they were just the receiver, and the car outside was emitting this broad spectrum sort of X-ray.
Z-wave kind of.
Yeah, and you kind of like, you're all getting X-rayed right now.
Super healthy.
Having said that, just as a slight transition, I went through Schiphol Airport recently, and they've got new properly fancy kit for like airport security type stuff. Of all the kind of the usual thing of having to take
bend
all your
over
stuff out
and
your bag and
off.
exactly, buy someone dinner and all that kind of thing. Even now, like, because I'll be wearing boots or something, so I always go through and do the stand at the thing, and then have to take the shoes off, and they scan the shoes and everything. And now they've got like the fancy boot scanners and everything, so you don't have to take anything out your bag; it all just goes through. I had my bottle of water, and they said, "Oh, I think we need to check that." So they just take the thing and put it into like this pod, and then 10 seconds later it beeped and went, "Yeah, it's water." It's like full analysis
How do they control
of the bottle.
Is it like
Not a clue. It was just like a pod in this machine, and you just dropped the bottle in, and then it beeped, and they took the bottle out, handed me back to me, and then scanning the boots. It was 1 foot at a time. You just pop your foot into the machine, boot's still on. It does like a full foot thing, and then perfectly fine. Away you go.
Okay. Weird.
It's like it was super easy. Just like wander through, everything's done, and away you go.
I only know the like shower cabin styler thingies they have in New York.
Yeah, the kind of where they can. That's the kind of the James Bond style, isn't it? Where they can see through to the liquid layer of the.
What they call soft X-rays.
Yeah.
Yeah, because every X-ray band, it's a band, different frequencies. So they're using lower energy, longer wavelength X-rays. So it doesn't go very deep and isn't harmful. It isn't too harmful if you're not exposed for too long.
Is it blocked by the water layer?
Yeah. And yeah, as opposed to kind of the harder so the hard X-rays that you'd use to kind of X-ray. If you're looking for a broken bone, you use harder X-rays. If you're trying to examine a weld for a crack, then you use harder X-rays again to be able to penetrate the metal.
Or big hammers.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you get into when you get into that metal X-ray thing, you're getting into kind of crossover with gamma rays. So the only difference really is the nature of the source. So X-rays produced by high voltage supply and at some sort of target plate, whereas gamma rays, it's obviously a nucleus breaking down emission. They have the same frequency, just a different source. You can't tell the difference.
Andy,
it's a physics lesson. Yeah.
No, but you've just used a word there that
gamma ray.
No. The word obviously. You're explaining the difference between X-rays and gamma rays, and then you just said it's obviously a nucleus breaking down.
Well,
not very contextually biased that way.
It should be obvious to anyone that's done GCSE physics or above. Yeah.
Or anyone with accidental superpowers.
Yeah. I mean, it's really quite fascinating. I mean, the equipment that's available now. I mean, I can remember my first job in industry, doing a lot of research and development testing. I worked with a company that made magnetic materials, so tape, basically data recording tape, like videotape, but sort of data storage. That was their fundamental market. They had I
had a Commodore 64, so.
Yeah, so basically, yeah. I mean, one of my jobs for a while was trying to reverse engineer mini VHS tapes. Yeah, the little ones you use a camcorder. Trying to reverse engineer that, trying to find out what the Japanese were up to, because it was the American. So we were trying to find
back then it was the other way around.
It's essentially I wouldn't quite call it industrial espionage, but yeah, it was kind of
getting some inspiration.
Yeah, finding out what it was capable of on an actual physics level, both in terms of things like magnetic properties plus durability. One of the problems with tape is it stretches, so looking at things like that and just trying to examine it in as much detail as possible. But we had, as part of that, so I was in the kind of development team. So we had our own little lab and we had our own little printing line. So we could make our own tape, but we'd make it 6 inches wide, and it was spec'd in inches. Then we had, obviously, manufacturing was done on machines, multiple meters across. But we had another lab with the guy that worked with us, partially with us, but also partially with the main factory for quality assurance. And it was a microscopy lab. So we had a variety of very nice optical microscopes. Yeah, so we're talking mid-80s, late 80s, some microscopes that were costing 1.5, 2 times a typical family car at the time. Sort of £15,000 for a microscope. That's a bit more. But the fascinating, the one I liked kind of playing with, learning how to use rather, was a scanning electron microscope. Now, as part of that scanning electron microscope, we had an additional unit which could be used. It was using X-ray fluoroscopy. So basically, it would bombard a surface, and you could have your sample in your electron microscope. So you could be looking at something, 20,000 times magnification. So you're looking at, say, for example, a speck of material, debris on a surface that when you look at it under even an ordinary microscope, you're thinking, well, that's smooth. But you look at it under an electron microscope, it's ragged, and if there's a cut mark, the cut mark looks like a cliff, and you see bits of debris on there, and these bits of debris would be like looking at a beach ball on a flat sand beach, and imagine a big beach ball on there. That's what it would look like.
You could do in that situation the perfect thing to re-smooth that out. You could do with some kind of like a brush type thing that's got like some kind of tongue or something on it.
Yeah. You could actually lick it.
Yeah, there's the small problems of it. Yeah, being in an evacuated chamber covered in gold and liquid nitrogen temperatures. But
wearing a mask.
We could do that.
That's why you'd need it on the brush, not your own tongue.
But we had this you bombard. You could actually identify this spot. You could say, right, that spot there. It would bombard it with some X-rays, which would then bounce off, be detected, and then you'd get this printout on the screen of essentially that it would identify all the elements that were present and roughly how much of each one. So you could basically kind of go, oh, that seems to be a lot of carbon, hydrogen in this proportion. Oh, it's paper, or it's plastic. I mean, we had one quite a difficult couple of weeks where there was a big problem. One of our big customers who were buying high grade material from us was basically sort of saying, we've got problems with this. Turned out that the tape, for some reason, was cutting into it only used one reel rather than like a VHS cassette where you had 2 reels, reel to reel. This stuff had one reel, so it had a little catch that would get caught by the machine,
like an
drawn into
tape.
it, and then there was a reel inside the machine, so it would take it all out, put the data on, or read it, and then take it all back into the cassette to be taken away and stored securely. As it was being taken out, the edges of the tape were shredding the fiberglass reinforced plastic case, scattering tiny little bits of fiberglass all over the surface, which was leading to dropouts. So in the end, it was the X-ray fluoroscopy that kind of led us to kind of identify that was the cause. And then we had a kind of, I can't remember what the solution was now. I think they had to basically scrap a pile of the cases and go to back to a different material, change the material. And it was just down to kind of, the material, the things that were being supplied to us weren't up to the spec we wanted. They looked okay, but actually weren't.
Was it some kind of tolerance problem? Was it too
probably
tight?
I was quite lowly. I was just kind of trying to help solve this problem type rather than kind of dealing with the kind of the big wigs. But I think it probably was whether it was a case of tolerance in the materials or tolerance in the sort of space for the tape to pass through, I'm not sure. But there was definitely
And you get similar sort of things with like hard drives, spinning platter hard drives on computers. In the distance from the head to the platters is so close that it's the imperfections in the platter that causes when it's spinning fast enough, that causes enough of an air movement to lift the head so that it doesn't crash. And it's just
like a
purely
hovercraft.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just that air generated just by the spinning of the platters. And it's like, it's less than the height of a dust particle. That it just creates that little bit of lift just from it not being perfectly flat, which is crazy when you get, because if you get, I think if you ever taken a hard drive apart, but if you get the two platters and put them next to each other, they'll almost friction weld themselves together. Once you've got that air out, they're so flat. But to think that it's just imperfect enough to create lift. Yeah. Crazy when you get down to that kind of thing that, if it's smaller than our hands, we find it fiddly. But then when you get into smaller than things, smaller than you can see, that's when our brains start to dribble out of our ears and things, don't they?
Some of these things found by accident as well.
Yeah,
and these sort of changes. The whole kind of development. Daniel, you're a professional creative. Do you find yourself kind of doing something, kind of going, "Oh, that doesn't work for what I'm doing right now, but that good," and then you kind of a little while later goes, "That thing that went wrong there, that's just right for this thing I want to do now."
Yeah, quite often. I don't have an example.
Experimentation.
Oh, I was expecting 5.
On the spot.
I love. This is something I really, really do love. I love reading about kind of these incidental little sort of discoveries that get made. Oh, I'm working on a radar unit and my Hershey bar is melting in my pocket. Oh, let's see if we can use this to cook stuff. We've got a microwave oven. Or I've got this glue that's not really very good for gluing stuff, but I happen to be a lay reader in a church, and this would be great for just keeping my separate pages of my Bible. And the secretary going, "Oh, could you make me some as well?" When she saw it in the church, and like, "Okay," and all of a sudden you've got post-it notes.
Or shit, I left my juice outside and it's frozen.
Or I've left the window open and my sandwich is cured.
What was that?
You got to wonder, kind of,
the discovery of penicillin. The mold, tree mold comes through the window.
You've got to wonder, kind of here. Just think back to kind of the kind of early ages of hominids. It's like we're starting to kind of eat strange plants. How much of it was? Oh yeah, Uncle Nurg. Yeah, he ate that thing and he died, so we don't eat that thing anymore, and it just got passed on like that. But how many of it was also something like, "Oh, but Aunt Grill, ate that thing, and look how she's doing. She's doing really, really well." And all kind of Or do you kind of have a case of, right? We're going to force feed Erg, this thing, and see whether he dies or not, and then the rest of us can eat it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is surely the intelligent ones who passed along, their genes the best weren't a case of I'm going to eat this and see what happens. It was please eat this and I'll see what happens. Yeah, I'll eat that second.
You get him making. And the whole kind of the repurposing of things. The Bandosaur was came from the food industry.
bandsaws,
The chainsaw came from the medical industry. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're squeamish, never look up why the chainsaw was invented.
Yeah.
Yeah, really
Definitely.
not. And it's not for amputation.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you don't want to know. They probably shouldn't say that, because that's the automatic way to get somebody to want to know something, isn't it? You don't want to know this.
Yeah. Hold on. Gotta Google it.
They say it will make your eyes water and it will make you appreciate the women in your life a bit more.
Okay. Aye.
Tongue brush.
Yeah.
That needs to be more of a thing.
Yeah.
Because that was almost an accidental invention. That was more a case of a challenge back from a thing, wasn't
it? The origin story of the tongue brush was, I saw an illustration made by Simone, and had the immediate urge to make this thing a real thing, and I had no idea how to make it. So I started Googling how to make a silicone tongue, and
did you find much stuff on that?
I found a lot about making silicone prosthetics and stuff. And then I thought, maybe I find a ready-made one, and just went to Amazon and searched for rubber tongue, and there it was.
Amazing.
Of course.
So I ordered one and stuck it to a paintbrush. That's the origin story. So,
I mean, having seen the lengths that you've gone to for other videos and things, the fact that it was just a case of ordering 2 bits off the internet and sticking them together, it's such a change from the amount of work you'd normally put into stuff like that. You know,
the most amount of work was in the production of the video.
Exactly.
That was where the work was. But
it's a beautiful video.
Thank you.
But, I mean, in terms of your day-to-day work, the video making is quite
part
high
of my work.
It's part of part of your work.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of, I mean, I get the impression, sort of having followed you for quite a few years on sort of Instagram, and seems to be stuff on YouTube and the like, and through kind of, you know, the Fools of Tools group or the Makers Magnet group, and seeing some of your stuff, I get the impression that obviously you have a work environment where sometimes you just go, let's do this mad thing.
I have to
make these things.
I have to.
I think that's
it's. I have.
You have to, because you have to kind of get that release, or is
I
it
have to get it out of my head.
No.
I have to get it out of my head. Otherwise, it haunts me. The silly thing, the silly intro I did for the corn, which is like a this stupid dad joke idea, combining the TikTok trending song "It's Corn" and the opening for The Crown was like this silly dad joke in my head. I carried around for way too long, I guess 3 months, 4 months, till I finally found time to put in 250, 300 hours.
Wow.
That is commitment to a dad joke.
Yeah.
That's ultimate respect.
It's a curse sometimes. but I had to get it out of my head. And I did it solely for me, because every time I thought about it, I giggled inside, and was like, and even if no one else would have seen it, I had my fun with it, and that was the most important thing for me.
That's the thing, I think, as well, isn't it? Is if you're doing a project that you enjoy and processes that you enjoy, it's all that journey. It's not necessarily the end result. It's icing on the cake. It's a bonus that the end result was fantastic.
Yeah.
But that process and that journey, I think, is what that kind of maker spirit's all about as well.
Yeah, I guess it's at least 90%, because when you, I have a lot of projects that have never been finished. And you get quite a lot out of it, but when you finish a project and publish it and get some feedback on it, and maybe even get some likes by from people you admire and that inspired you, that's worth quite much, quite a lot. Yeah. And the funny thing with the corn opener, it was liked and shared by the creators of the original intro for The Crown. And it was nice. I released it on the day of the coronation. I did a premiere exactly at the moment when he got the crown put on his head, and my coronation was the moment when they shared the thing.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
Did Simone ever see the tongue brush? Do you know?
Simone?
Yeah.
Saw it, yeah. And cool. She shared it.
Yeah.
I mean that does. I mean, I think you're right, isn't it? You finish a project and you get it out and it goes down well. And I think it doesn't. I don't think it matters too much of the scale. You know, whether you finish something, you give it to someone, and there's no sharing on social media, but they go, "Oh, I really like this." Or you share something on social media, and particularly it then goes down well. And particularly, as you say, if there's people that really inspire you, and you've been inspired by them to do something, and then they kind of go, "Yeah, we like that. We're going to share that around as well. Look, see what this person's done because they were inspired by us."
The sharing is the icing on the cake. But that's not the reason I do that. And for me, it's important. I have this. I think if you like what someone else is doing, tell them. And the best way to tell them is create something with a part of them in it.
Like an homage.
An homage, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's another thing I did was the tiny guitars I built.
Oh, they're cute.
And the first one I built just for myself because I wanted the tiny guitar next to my desk. And I'm a big fan of Ola Englund, a famous metal guitar player, YouTuber, super funny guy, super marketing genius. And I built the first guitar and posted it on Instagram, and they shared it and liked it.
Nice.
I did a short video with it, and they used it for a Pro Tools So it's like, check out our new tiny guitar, and the guy's playing it. And the company that builds the bridges for the guitar for their guitars, it's called Evertune, and it's a special bridge that keeps the guitars in tune.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And there's some spring mechanism in there that keeps the tension keeps the tension the same, so they don't go out of tune when the temperature changes. They shared it as well.
Nice.
And the second guitar I built was for Charlie Underwood, my twin, who begged me for kind of 2 months that he would like to get one for himself. So I built a second one, and Ole Englund shared it again. So I thought the next one I built for him as a present. And I built a tiny Viking guitar and sent it to him, and he unpacked it, and now it's hanging next to his studio. I made a tiny version of a custom guitar. He got custom made from a British guitar builder, and I made it in half scale. And the only reference I had was a photo of Final Thing. So, and now they are hanging next to each other, the big one and the tiny one.
I seem to remember. I must. Did you do an unboxing video of it? Yeah, I think that's what I've seen.
I even built a small case for it,
Yeah.
and a cable in half scale. I even printed the. It's not a manual. It's the warranty booklet you get with it in half scale.
Amazing.
The string label, because when you get the guitar, there is a small label hanging on there with just the description of the strings that are on there. Everything in half scale.
Do you have a preference for? I mean, obviously, a lot of your work is based around digital technology and VFX and the like. Do you have a preference for that, or for kind of hands-on making?
I guess it's always a mixture, and the digital influences the analog, and the analog influences the digital. It's like the best of both worlds. I grew up in an analog world, right on the tipping point to the digital world.
I suppose there's got to be a time versus fun trade-off, hasn't there? That there might be something that is easier or quicker to make digitally or analog, and sometimes you could do either or.
Oftentimes it's a look decision.
That makes sense.
And sometimes it's time decision, of course. Because as a digital artist, you often tend to try to make everything digital. I was teaching at the university for a few years, and the biggest problem I had with students was they tried to do everything in computer. When they had to put in smoke within a setting, they tried different plugins and different software and simulated all the smoke, when the easiest solution is just to take a black background and a smoke machine and create your smoke.
Yeah, of course. Perfectly timed.
You're on fire again.
So
I was watching
growing up. Growing up in this transition between analog and digital is you have the possibility to take whatever works best for the moment.
I think, yeah, it's and it's getting that measure. I was watching a behind the scenes show about Doctor Who, and it's not the recent. It was an old one this last week, and it was talking about an episode where it's an episode with Queen Victoria in an isolated Scottish house, and there's a werewolf, and the werewolf was created. It was, I mean, so this is probably about trying to think when it would have come out. Yeah, more than 10 years ago, and so they had an actor who was essentially moving around the set. So they had somebody to sort of act towards, and they had various scenes. There was a scene where he was actually changing from a man into the werewolf. And a very good actor in terms of, showing him kind of, he's in a, not, it's not all chroma key, but he was basically in a suit, and he had a few markers on, not quite as many as you see with, say, some of the Marvel films, where they're kind of, particularly somebody like Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man, he just covered head to
full
foot.
mocap.
All kind of,
Did they just use him as a reference?
They were using him as a reference. They started off, and you see the scenes of change, and you're seeing, he's literally, when you first see him, he's the man. He's starting to sort of and endure the change taking place, and what you're seeing then in the finished product is that man, and he's starting to kind of express pain in his face, and he was a very good actor in terms of being able to kind of extend his neck, and you could see the sort of pain. He had contact lenses in to kind of really sort of darken his eyes. Of course, there's lighting and it's all dark, so and then obviously the final werewolf was all CGI. But it was interesting listening to, I think it was Russell T Davies, talking about how actually they had a very limited budget for the CGI at this point. It's extremely expensive compared to nowadays for what was achievable in the sort of the time and the time frames. So he was actually kind of almost using the it suits Doctor Who anyway. He was very much trying to use it as little as possible, but enough to make the viewer have the story in their head and to envisage what is happening. So you're actually kind of relying on, rather than just showing the whole gamut, the whole details of the transitions, and then the various killings, that a lot of it was done off screen, which you've got a very mixed audience with Doctor Who. It's supposed to be a family show for not so scary that young children are going to be absolutely scared witless and damaged for life, but enough that they may be hiding behind the sofa and covering their eyes on bits. But the adults watching it are understanding maybe the deeper psychological thrill that's there of what's happening and why it's happening. And it was interesting to sort of see that balance between VFX and analog effects that they achieved, combined with the storytelling, because I think that's possibly an element that gets missed out within that. Combining the three together, if you can have the greatest video, VFX, or the greatest analog effects, but if you're not telling the story, and if you're not getting buy-in from your audience, it's all wasted.
I guess that's why the Lord of the Rings trilogy works so well compared to The Hobbit.
And it's I mean, it's particularly the big screen stuff is even probably more so in the scale of when you're looking at miniatures and pictures and then the VFX and what do you miss out in order to keep the story going, but save yourself some money as well. you look back in the days of I don't know what kind of Austrian and German television was like kind of in the 1970s, but some of the kind of particularly some of the British sci-fi, you get Doctor Who, classic Doctor Who. Yeah, there's a scene from one of the very first seasons. I think it might have been the very first season, the first time we see Daleks, and they only had 3 Daleks. They had 3, but you look at these sort of scenes, you can sort of see there's 30 in this room. But if you look really carefully, you can see they're clearly cardboard cutouts. But you don't notice, because of the story. You only notice when somebody goes, that scene back then yesterday, there was
story resolution back then was pretty forgiving.
Yeah.
As soon as they started with HD productions, a lot of the stuff got way more complicated.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've all seen that video as well, haven't we? With the people dancing, and then there's the person in the monkey suit comes through, and
yeah,
I think it's the bouncing basketballs or something.
They're asked to count basketball bounces, and a guy in a gorilla suit walks past.
Like you say, if you know where the audience is going to be focusing on, you can concentrate a little bit less on the background stuff.
But the HD thing's interesting with that, because I remember seeing I think it was a little video at some point, whether it's YouTube or on TV, I can't remember, talking about how essentially it was a computer problem. If you're generating, if you're compressing a video, and you have, say, something, you've got a forest. From a compression point of view, you might actually go, okay, well, look, we've got a bunch of trees, so if maximum compression, we can just call that a bunch of green, and as long as the outline and maybe a few black lines along it, it's going to look like a bunch of trees because of the story. But then when you get your resolution of your TV gets better and you play that back, it's going to look really awful. If you then, the next level would be you'd have the same tree, and you just the compression software basically says, right, there's a tree, so we just need one tree, and we'll just reproduce that 500 times to produce this forest. But so then that looks better, except if you actually look at it in close detail, you see they're all the same tree, and people notice it because people look for these sort of things. And of course now, in more data storage, have to kind of go, okay, well, now we're going to have every individual tree is recorded separately, so you can see the individual branches on those trees, and you can tell that they're all different. And there's a spruce next to a larch, next to a fir, next to and you just have that separation, and you just have to suck up the data.
Yeah, on one hand, it's getting more and more complicated. Because you have to look for way more things than you had back in the day. Like when I started with the 3D animation stuff, when you put in a bunch of trees, all the same, just a little bit rotated, would look fine. Oh, cool, they have 3D trees. If you do that now,
copy paste 3.
Yeah, it looks 90s pretty quickly. even though it wasn't possible in the 90s, because it was in the early 2000s.
What is it that you are generally using for your software and your productions and stuff?
Mostly Maya. A little bit of Blender.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was trained in Maya almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, so I think is it Lightwave's the other one that was popular at the time?
Back then?
Yeah.
Or now?
Back then.
3ds Max, but more
3ds
for
the
visualization stuff.
And then AutoCAD or Autodesk bought all of them, I think.
Yeah. except for Cinema 4D.
Yes.
That's still
Yeah,
nice.
that was the other one. Because
Yeah.
I think we must have been doing our studies at a similar time. Yeah, I remember doing Studio Max. It was before Autodesk got them.
Discrete.
But they had Autodesk had an essentially they'd kind of licensed a chunk of discrete software to use for their kind of renderer for architectural stuff.
Okay.
And then they just bought them outright.
Yeah, pretty quickly after they bought what was it? Softimage. That was called XSI back then.
Yeah.
I guess this was within 3 or 4 months. They bought the two of them, and a year later they bought what are they called? Called Area? Had Maya. The three biggest packages within a year or so.
Yeah, now you just get one subscription license for whatever their current iteration and thing is for development or production stuff or something like that, isn't it? You just get one subscription and you get
there is an option where you get, I guess, a 3ds Max, Maya, Motion Builder. That's their animation software specialized for character animation. Mudbox, which is their sculpting tool. I don't know what it costs, but Maya alone is $1,500 a year.
Yeah, something like that. We use the what they call the AEC collection at work, which is their kind of, you get 3ds Max with it.
Okay, for rendering.
For rendering, yeah, and then it's like AutoCAD and Revit and Navisworks. They're kind of their architectural engineering packages. And yeah, I think they've got like a production package for doing graphics and visualizations, and then they've got like an engineering product design package, and then they've got the kind of the architectural and building services package. It seems to be there. You must be lumped into one of those three categories to buy the software individually.
What's the renderer you're using?
We don't tend to do much in the way of rendering, so we're not really doing anything with it. But 3ds Max is stuff that I've used before, but we don't tend to do anything with work.
Just a little bit of exploring.
Yeah, let's just go back into the fun stuff. I think it was called Viz back in the day.
I guess
this was misremembering
that. Wasn't this some kind of pipeline tool for AutoCAD 3D to get it into? Yeah, I started 3D modeling with 3ds Max 4.5 or 5. This was before I had an internet connection. So it was pressing F1 and reading the manual.
Yep.
That's how I started.
Yeah, I was having a conversation about that, the F1 key the other day. Obviously now with high-speed internet connections and fast computers and everything, it was, it's fine if you hit F1, it pops up and you can quite happily do whatever you need to do. But kind of 2003, 2004, when I was, kind of back in college using early Autodesk stuff, when you accidentally hit F1 when you go to hit the escape key to come out of a command, you'd hit F1, it would start preloading the help files that would just grind everything to a halt. So it's well, I gotta make a
Was
drink.
What did they switch back then from because before that all the HAB files were stored locally?
Yeah, it was all
They were
local.
pretty
But it was
fast. Okay.
it was just there's so much of it to preload.
Okay.
If you hit F1, it was just opening all these help files in, loading them from the drive into memory, and it was such an extensive amount of help files. It would just lock the software up for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, having software locked up for a couple of minutes was pretty common back then for everything you did. Apply a Photoshop filter,
Yeah.
switch from wireframe mode to shaded mode, where you waited half an hour before it crashed finally.
I remember doing I did some visualizations for an architectural project, and doing it was a 1024 by 768 single frame render that was taking about 5 minutes to render per frame. It's like Pentium 4
Pretty
days.
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Blind's law says 8 minutes. The render time is a constant of 8 minutes.
Amazing. I brought in an extra. I brought in the RAM from my own house into work to put into my work PC to bring it up to a 1 gig of RAM to bring the render times down.
5 minutes is pretty okay.
Yeah, it wasn't much in the way of lighting in there at that point. It was just one of those of like, right, I'm gonna hit render. I'll be back in a bit.
That's the reason why most of the 3D guys back in the university were smokers. It's like, what else would? Yeah, you have to do a test render, hit render, go for a smoke.
Yeah, I remember we did we had a 3D animation suite at college, and it was using the network rendering. So we had it was a timed exam, and you had to produce a 3D model to spec, and you had to have the video file rendered out by the time at the end of the exam. And it was because it was using network rendering. It was basically it was a race to see who could finish their model and hit the render button first, because it would start using everyone else's CPU. Yeah.
What did you study?
I just loads of different things. That was when I was doing a multimedia course. So that was using 3ds Max and Premiere, I think, for the video. Yeah, that would have been mid 2000s ish, I think. So yeah, still like awful machines by today's standards, but they were not particularly great machines then either.
I'm saying, I think
the funny thing is that they weren't the machines I used weren't that slow back in the time. You worked them differently.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like when I compare it to the way I use a software today compared to how my employees use the same software today. It's like I'm used to work in wireframe mode or shaded mode. I don't need lights in there when I'm modeling. Students nowadays, they want to see the final image, even when they are working on stuff that's way far from being finished in terms of modeling and preparation, whatnot.
And I think it's the shortcuts that we had to learn as well. I mean, I remember doing some architectural renders that would have been 2007, 2008, I think maybe. And I think that was using whatever that pre-takeover, architectural rendering package was. That was basically Studio Max. And doing things, like if you were only going to have a view at the front, so just delete all the faces from behind. You don't need to have the full 3D model. You just have essentially the surfaces that you need to see and nothing else behind it, because it's additional geometry, it's additional,
like a theater set.
Exactly that, yeah. But I think we've kind of we've become spoiled in what we've got access to. Like an old friend of mine was doing some things for I think he was in Lightwave, doing similar thing to yourself of mixing digital 3D models into filmed stuff. And he had really, really expensive high-end PC with like top end of everything. And then he found, I think it was in Singapore, there was a rendering farm where the electricity is so cheap, and he was looking at how much it would cost, or how much time it would take for him to render a scene for a movie. And he'd got the details of this rendering farm, so he shot them a message, shot them the file, and then 7 minutes later got a response back. And he thought, oh, this must be the confirmation. And it wasn't. It was the finished rendered file. It's like it was going to take him in the region of like 36 hours to render it on his machine, and it was just handed back to him 7 minutes later, finished and complete. It's, it cost him a few pound to get it rendered, but it would have basically cost him the same to leave his PC on for 36 hours.
Yeah,
in his electric cost. It's just baffling.
Nowadays, this kind of technology is built into the renderers. So when you're using V-Ray, you can use their cloud to
rendering credits and stuff. Yeah, it's just a totally different way of working.
Totally different, yeah.
But it's amazing. I mean, I can't talk about any of what. I hardly understand half of what you've just said in the last 10 minutes.
Don't worry, me neither.
I come from a different era. I mean, my first PC, which I bought in 1990, I think 1990, ran at 4 megahertz. Yeah, it had 20 megabytes of storage built into it.
Mine ran at 8 megahertz with the boost on.
Yeah, and when I can't remember which package it was now, but you talk about kind of F1. I can remember having to put in a floppy disk, the help files on the floppy disk in order to access the help to kind of, for probably the thing I spent most of my time on was Lotus 123. So it was probably for that, trying to kind of actually sort of work out what some of the what do you call them, the functions, some of the functions were on it, to try and sort of do stuff. And it's just like what we have now. Yeah, when we actually think about it, we get people complain sometimes, and I do. Yeah, they kind of go, oh yeah, it's like it's just taking 5 minutes to render out this file on Premiere Pro for a kind of a couple 4K, of hours of conversation, and more not even in 4K, but it's like 5 minutes on my machine back there. Not particularly fast. It's a i5. I think I've got. I don't think how much have I got in terms of that. I think I've got about 30 gigabytes of RAM, and it's possibly not 24. I think it's 24, and it's. I think, but when you actually think of what it's actually doing, and how far we have come in my lifetime, certainly, from the first computer I have had, Christmas 1981, ZX81, and to think of what it was like then and what we've got now, and what I've got, just sitting next to me, and what that's capable of.
Well, Dave Plummer, he's got a YouTube channel called Dave's Garage.
Dave's Garage, yeah,
and he's ex Microsoft developer, and he did a video the other day with the new ridiculous Threadripper. It's 192 threads.
Yeah,
and it's just unreal. And he decided he wanted to test it, so he wrote a Python script that would open up 100 Chrome windows and then reach out to a Doom server that he had running on it, and then it would load in the demo for Doom in the browser, in the Chrome browser. So he had this like tiled interface of 100 Chrome windows that would pop up and then run them at full playable FPS all at once, and it was using about 5% of the CPU. Like 100 copies of Chrome running.
Yeah,
it's just nuts to think.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen in the next 10 years' time? I mean, Daniel, from the work you do, are you looking at things like AI and thinking, this is going to speed things up, this is going to make life easier for this is going to do things I'm not currently capable of doing, or we're not currently capable of doing, are going to become possible?
AI is some kind of tricky topic. I'm not a big friend of AI. In certain parts, in certain areas, in others, it's like using the content-aware fill tool in Photoshop for stamping out stuff, for expanding the background, for retouching purposes. Totally okay with it. It's like a super huge time saver. Using Midjourney for image creation, not my cup of tea.
Entirely fair.
I finally found out why. The thing is, I need to have my hand on things.
Yeah.
When I give out the control of the creation, I'm not the creator anymore. And I don't get anything out for me by that. It's like,
I think the kind of the twist on that, I think that like if you say to a human being, can you design me this picture, please? And that that artist comes back to you and says, here's the picture based on what you've asked me to do. You could say to that artist, actually, can we do this here and do this here and do this here and this here? That interaction, although you can do something similar with AI, it's not quite as contextually aware as a real person.
That's one thing, and the other thing is, who's the artist in this scenario?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the one telling, but the one creating.
Yeah,
and I want to be the artist.
Yeah,
there's a similar thing
That's
happening
where
in the
I
world of
get the
education.
satisfaction.
Yeah, there's a similar thing happening in the world of education, which I think is probably a good model for what you just sort of said there. There's a number of schools now in the UK who are heading towards a kind of a style of teaching where the teacher in front of a class essentially has a script, a very well written script that kind of, so for example, science is my subject, science teaching. So it has a very well written script which has acknowledges the most common misconceptions in science. So tries to kind of sort of build models that the students will understand that don't have the pitfalls that the misconceptions might bring. Even has this sort of questions that might be asked in order to build understanding. And there's more and more of this happening. there's a particularly famous school in the UK which is kind of supposedly has the Britain's toughest head teacher and is kind of gets the best results, depending on how you measure them, of course. Gets the best results in the UK, and that's the kind of model that they have built as a part of their sort of structures, and for every subject. So one of the roles of the head of department is to kind of write these things and to make sure the staff are following them to the T. So it's taking that independence out of the kind of the action of teaching. And for me, I would feel very stifled by that. I want if I'm teaching a class, I want to have a relationship with that class. I want to know the students. I want to know then that maybe a particular style of modeling might work for an idea and might work better with that class than it does for another. And that might be based on simple things like I'm not going to talk about, for example, if we're talking about momentum, a common kind of sort of thing to talk about is something like a rifle and a bullet, or a cannon. We're starting with something, it's got zero momentum, it fires, the cannon goes backwards, the rifle goes backwards, the cannonball bullet goes forwards. And so we've got conservation of momentum. Now, if I know I've got a student in that class who maybe has come from a war-torn area, has been traumatized by war, or maybe has lost a parent in battle somewhere, the last thing I'm going to do is use that as an example.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to pick a different example. Now, you might argue, well, why not pick that different example anyway? Well, a different example might not be suitable if there's another situation. I wouldn't. It's quite common to talk about, again, momentum and things like talk about, how do police investigate an accident? Oh, look, this car has moved sideways a certain amount when it was hit by a lorry. Well, I've got a student that's maybe suffered an injury from that. The last thing we do is pick that, and that's just one tiny little example that of I want to have the freedom to put my teaching into it, to add my stories. I taught for 20 years. I'm a very good physics teacher. I've got a lot of knowledge and understanding from 20 years of interactions with students and knowing where those things are. And am I likely to get that from a script? Yeah. Or even to learn those things from a script, if that's all I teach is I've got this script.
Now, this, and you're very easily replaceable. That's the teachers I remember the most are the ones that stood out in the positive or a negative way. The teachers I don't remember are the ones that were like wishy-washy, like.
I think we've all rang tech support and had the same kind of thing, haven't we? Of trying to, you've got a specific, unique problem, and you need a real person to understand what you're asking and do that kind of troubleshooting with you. You need someone, that kind of buddy system, and I think that's the same with the teaching as well. Of you want someone who understands your way of learning and gives you that knowledge, not just kind of holds the textbook up and says, read this.
Or at least is willing to.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's probably a good time. It's gone past midnight for you there in Europe. But let's move on to perhaps our attention grabbers, the things that have been grabbing our attention, things we've been working on, watching, reading, or things that we're about to start watching, reading, or kind of working on.
Anything you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, past, present, or future. It can be something physical, something analog. It's up to you. It can be more than one thing. Guest always goes first. Well, you don't have to.
What I'm currently working on is a fun project, but I guess that's more something for the Patreons.
Well, we're gonna, yeah. Ooh, I was gonna say we're not gonna have
very
a.
beautiful teas.
Yeah.
Or should I share
you
it
have to
here?
tell us separately. Well, we're not going to have an after show. We're
Okay.
getting into the Christmas season.
Okay. Well,
So yeah,
then I'll share it here.
the benefits of the after show for the non-Patreon members.
For the non-patrons. Yeah.
So they know what they're missing. Yeah.
Yeah. Very inspired by a branding studio I'm following for quite a while. They are based in Stockholm. They studied, the two founders studied in Leeds, probably at the time when our friend Al studied there.
Okay.
And they call themselves Snask.
Nice.
Okay.
And they are, I guess, the most feministic branding studio there is. They are super cool dudes. Their slogan is "Make enemies, gain fans."
Nice.
Like it.
They have a 10-point manifesto, which I find totally awesome. And they have they converted their toilet to the world's tiniest Wolf-Ferrell museum. And are trying to get Will Ferrell to visit them.
Oh, fantastic.
And I saw them posting about that on LinkedIn and thought there's a chance to finally meet them, and commented, when I convert our toilet to the tiniest Snask museum, will you visit us? And they said yes. So I'm currently converting our toilet to the tiniest Snask museum. And I'm also thinking about making it an official thing, trying to get touristic funding, because in Austria, every company has to pay for, it's like some kind of tourism fee, tax, whatever. No matter if you're in touristic business or not, you have to pay for tourism advertising, and this would be a possible way to get some of the money back.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Is it still going to be a toilet as well, or is it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a toilet museum, and I'm currently trying to work out the details.
Oh, fantastic! I can't wait to see more of that. That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's. I guess it will be a very fun project. It's absolute silly project.
I assume there's going to be
there is a lot of pink
heavily
involved.
produced. Nice. Is there going to be an amazingly overproduced video to go with it?
Yeah. We are even thinking about making a virtual tour.
Yes.
How big is your toilet?
120. It's not square. It's like oddly shaped.
Okay.
Some kind of. There's no right angle in there. It's 120 by 60 by 40 by 20 by 65 by 18 by. It's small. If you like to have a look at the toilet prior the conversion to the museum, search for Multi-Awesome Studio on Unsplash. There is a photo.
Nicely done.
Which is a fun thing, because when you search for Salzburg or Hallein on Unsplash, one of the first images that pops up is our toilet.
Fantastic. We get similar at work because of the way where our office building is. All of the big dumpsters for all of the other companies around just happen to sit exactly in view where the Google car came in. So it came into the industrial estate and kind of looked at our office. It's over the other side of a hedge, and it didn't turn right into where our office is. It just kind of took the photo, turned around and buggered off. So all you can see is a hedge, a load of big kind of dumpsters in front of it for all of the other companies, and then over the other side is like above our doors. So when you search the company, that is the first image that pops up on Google, is this really, really shit photo that I can't seem to get rid of.
Yeah. Because they don't make an appointment. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
If you know in advance.
Yeah, definitely. Just all posing in front of it.
Yeah. And getting blurred out.
Jimmy, what about you? What's been grabbing your attention?
Toys, basically.
Toys.
It's been a very eventful time since I've been on this podcast, but most notably in buying myself a bamboo printer, the X1 Carbon, which I've basically spent this week playing with after spending last weekend at the Sanjay Mortimer Rep Festival, which was down in Oxford, which was hosted by E3D and the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation, basically celebrating and raising awareness for neurodiversity and all of the fun and games that come with that. But it was a wonderful, wonderful melting pot of all the super nerdy folks that are doing wonderfully awesome stuff. Multi-awesome stuff, you could say.
It attracted some big names in the 3D printing kind of world, didn't it?
Yeah, very, very big names. And all of the big companies were there as well. I mean, obviously E3D were there. It was their kind of event, but then Prusa came along and all the Voron engineers came along and all of the big YouTubers were there as well. So, Joel Telling, the 3D printing nerd, was hosting the raffle and things like that. So it's fantastic. And we were there, me and our good friend Duncan, Little Hobby Shop, were there helping Ali, another wonderful friend of ours, who was demoing or displaying all of their ridiculous stuff. Seeing the Dynamax ball with the full map 3D lighting effects and things on display is cool. But then being a part of that, we also had Billy Rubin and Eric Cederberg, who again wonderful friends of the podcast. The 5 of us got an Airbnb and chilled out for the weekend, and then got to hang out with some super nerdy, very, very intelligent folks. So it's a very, very cool weekend. But it basically meant that I came home from that and just have spent all week playing and doing things like the 3D printed mouse and very cool, funky stuff, including a 3D scanned version of me.
Awesome.
Well, hey.
So there will be, hopefully, when I can figure out some non-engineering CAD stuff that takes this, hopefully there'll be some more funky projects involving my head.
Was it just your head that was scanned?
Well, it was boobs up.
Boobs up. What are you planning on doing with?
Well, I've got a little glasses mounted screen thing. It's kind of like a little It's not a Google Glass, but it's that kind of idea that it's a little screen that takes an HDMI input. And when it's on the glasses, it weights the glasses. And I want to make a full a prosthetic that has it permanently mounted that I can just like stick it to my head and not have to rely on the glasses.
So you need it as a base in real life scale.
I can 3D print my head out at full scale, and then I can stick bits of leather to it and stuff if I need to. And it's easier to do that on a version of me rather than on the actual me.
Makes sense.
That's my thinking.
I mean, that's potentially going to be a little bit tricky to get it exactly right scale, or just lots of trial and error.
It's scanned at 1:1 scale. I just import the
right, okay,
print.
Right, even better. As long as your head fits inside your bamboo.
Yeah,
but I've got
hearts.
I know I've got a big head, but I've also got friends with big printers as well.
And where's the problem with the file?
Just that it's I want to play with it, but it's 8.5 million polygons or something, maybe more. It's a big file because they sent the full mesh and stuff.
So you need to reduce it.
It just needs a little bit of cleanup and things, and because I'm so out of practice with the kind of the arty things. All my CAD that I normally do is engineering type stuff. So
if you like, you can send me the file and I'll give it a try.
Awesome. I shall take you up on that. Cool. Yeah. See what we can do. It's only picked up part of the beard as well, because obviously it was it doesn't like the less dense bits at the bottom.
Fizzy bit.
Yeah. The less dense parts. Yeah.
Yeah. It just gives me an excuse to trim the beard down to
There are no excuses for that.
Yeah, that's the reason why I haven't done it yet.
Says the guy with the probably one of the most impressive beards in the maker community. Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely the best Tash. Well, I think between you and Kelly, you give each other a run for the money.
Yeah, I mean there'd be a competition. Yeah.
How about you, Andy? What's been grabbing your attention recently?
This week, I have a child. I mean, I say adult child, but I have an adult child with a bad leg, so been doing lots of ferrying around. Also in the throes of trying to decorate other adult child's room, which is a slow process because I'm slow at decorating best of times. So yeah, that's pretty much that to kind of the stuff I do at the men's shed. Yeah, that's pretty much everything at home is either revolved around helping the lame or trying to get a room decorated.
Not much time for you.
Yeah. C'est la vie. C'est la vie. Yeah. It's just it's natural nature of life, isn't it?
Indeed.
So yeah, that's been my thing. Yeah. Daniel, where's the best place for people to find your work? Or best places to find your work?
Everywhere in the internet. Search for Multi-Awesome Studio. I guess the only place where there's a different name is on Twitter, where it's just Multi-Awesome, because Multi-Awesome Studio was long.
Character shortage as well, isn't it? There's character limit on Twitter. Yeah, a lot of people.
Very limited characters.
But, I mean, who wants to be on Twitter nowadays? I'm seriously thinking. I kind of want to put. I want to kind of put the account just into kind of my account, and
it's a bit masochistic.
I mean, certainly my own account is fairly well curated. Haven't had it since I think about 2008, 2009. So I've had it quite a long time, and it's fairly well curated in terms of what I see. But now you get the Maker's Waffle isn't as curated. Obviously, I follow a lot of makers on there and see a lot of maker type stuff, but they also get a lot of, for some reason, a lot of football stuff, which I'm really not into. And of course, there's a lot of political stuff, and because my personal Twitter account there's a lot of educational accounts I follow. That's so political nowadays as well, and
Sometimes
it's
you got to take a step back, haven't you?
Yeah, I think Twitter is. I think fairly soon, I think Twitter will disappear from active use. I think that's probably the best way of doing it. I don't want to just throw away kind of an account that's been there for a long time, but I think it's just.
You sort of need a button that says pause my account until Elon's no longer involved.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
or the next elections are done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might help, particularly with the bunch of right-wing fascists we've got in charge in this country. But that's enough about politics.
Yeah.
On that note.
Yeah. Dave, it has been absolutely fantastic to chat with you.
It has, and thank you
likewise.
for accommodating our time changes and shuffling around. And,
sorry about the other week.
No problem at all.
Yeah, just one of those things, and hopefully,
it's been an absolute
at some point, I've been out to Austria 3 times on holiday. I think I've been to Austria almost as many times as I've been to France.
Where have you been?
My first skiing trip was to Searle. Second ski trip was I've forgotten the name of, and I've forgotten the name of the third place as well. But again, it's a ski resort. It's 20 years since I've been to Austria. I should know because I've got a picture up on the wall. Should be going with then. My wife and I took when she was pregnant with our first, we took a summer trip to a obviously not in action ski resort. It was that summer of 2003. It was a really, really hot summer. It was the summer where people were dying across Europe. So, she was several months pregnant. We decided to go to Austria, but pretty much a walking holiday. Apart from the one day where it was just, it's the Tyrol. It's just so beautiful. I just love mountains, and it's before my back was causing me any major issues. So basically one day I said, how do you fancy having 3 hours of just by yourself and just wander around, so maybe wherever you like? So if we took the ski lift up to the top of the it's not the top of the mountain. We took the ski lift up. So she spent 3 or 4 hours just wandering around sort of near the ski lift and the cafes up there. And I did the mad Welshman, and literally kind of ran for 2 hours to try and find the highest peak that I could get to in 2 hours so that I could then run back in 2 hours. I think I was getting some very strange looks because there weren't many other people running around because it was A, so hot, and B, I wasn't using a pair of poles. There were a lot of people with power poles, kind of power walking.
But you had proper shoes.
I had boots on. I had boots on.
Okay.
Yeah, which probably looked strange as well. But I find it easier. Used to find it easier to run in boots than actually to run in
Makes
trains,
sense.
especially on off
in the mountains. You
tracks,
have to be equipped properly
with their ankle support.
Yeah, I think I did something like it was about 15 miles. So what would that be in about 25 kilometers in the kind of 4 hours, and a lot of a few hundred meters of vertical height as well, which was fun. It was great fun. Although trying to have my German certainly then wasn't very good. It's a little bit better now, but certainly wasn't very good then. And having a conversation with it,
you're still learning.
Still learning, yeah. I've been learning since I was 13. I definitely still learning. Yeah, my wife is fluent in German, or as good as for somebody who's not actually native born. But yeah, I was on the top of this sort of peak, out of breath. Yeah, just climbed up really quite steep, quite narrow peak. Got to the kind of this highest point that I could get to this sort of time, and there was this middle-aged German couple there, and they didn't have any English at all, and my German was fairly limited, and trying to kind of explain what I was doing. It was just, that was fun. But yeah, they seem
just
to
gotta hold your hands up and then show
find
them
it
the Welsh
funny.
flag.
No, I had a smidgen of enough German to kind of explain roughly that I love the mountains and was having a nice day out. And they seemed to think that was quite funny. And then I was like, bye, auf Wiedersehen, and ran back down.
As one
And I
does.
was, it was literally running. So it's a beautiful country. Yeah, I'd like to go back at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you are, drop by.
Yeah. I certainly will. Well, apparently there's a museum that
museum
needs
to
to
see.
visit. Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, apparently there's a museum. There's going to be a new museum that's got to be worthwhile.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The opening is scheduled around June, I guess, so far.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't see us being there next year. So, but at some point. Yeah, at some point, hopefully.
Mhm.
Probably have to.
I will guide you through the museum.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So you
Excellent.
won't get lost in there.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it's a very complex shape. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
museums are notorious for having these kind of little odd.
Yeah.
You ain't getting lost in them.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to get lost. Yeah, I think
In the museum.
end up spending a night in a museum. Yeah.
No, not in this one.
That's a whole other thing altogether, isn't it?
Yeah. I hear the facilities are quite good there. So
Yeah.
and, thank you so much. It's been
Yes,
a lovely
thank you
to have
again,
a
Daniel.
chat with you.
Thank you so much for the
we will,
invitation.
hopefully have a chat again sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
No.
we'll do.
So this is our just for the people who are still listening. Yeah, so you've had the what would have been the after show as well, and this is our penultimate show of 2023,
Which is
And
a
there's one more.
delightfully scary
Yeah.
thought.
Yes, Christmas in 15 days, 14 for
Oh, Andy,
Europeans.
no, just
No.
no.
Yep, 2 weeks tomorrow. You haven't got much time to get your shopping done.
Oh, on that note, just click the bloody button.
Yeah.
Bye, folks.
See you, folks.